Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We are here at the Empowered CEO Summit, and I am here with Miss Jeanette McMurtry. Miss Jeanette is the Chief Marketing and Communications Officer. She is driving leads, revenue, and sales for SaaS, manufacturing, finance, healthcare, so many different industries. On top of that, she's a global author, speaker, and trainer. I'm sorry. So we're so happy to have you with us here today.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah. I'm gonna go through your intro so everyone knows all of your awesome accolades, and then we'll jump right in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Miss Jeanette, she captivates her audiences with forward-thinking insights and concepts for marketing brands in any industry. She has earned five-star reviews at conferences for marketing associations and brand events worldwide, not just globally. How does it feel when you're hearing your bio and it's like, wow, I'm awesome. So, she also has been a session presenter for over 15 years with the members of program committees for the annual global marketing events. She hosted a radio show on business strategies for Voice of America's online radio network. And she also does a multitude of presentations and training sessions, really to help audiences understand the psychology of choice. And I can't wait to dig deeper into that. In addition, she talks about it being the most important driver of the purchasing decisions in B2C and also in B2B. This is important because she's going to show us how to build marketing campaigns across channels so that you can tap into this aspect of human psyche, which is often ignored. And because this is really governing up to 90% of consumer behavior, so we can't ignore it. Beyond her compelling and thought-provoking keynote and training sessions, Jeanette is also the author of count them, four international books on marketing strategy and tactics that build customer relationships, sales, and revenue growth, and also for sustainable brands. So this includes Big Business Marketing for Business Budgets, Marketing for Dummies, which I think is an amazing book. Market Your Business, your guide to DIY your marketing. I think you have another announcement for a new book that was just released. So you'll tell us about that. And she served as an employee or consultant, including multiple startups on the Fortune 500, including American Express, Xerox, Sony, Fisher Investments, and many more. Her work has beat past campaigns by 500%. That's an amazing. I had to look at that number twice and higher due to distinct psychology-based marketing approach. So, with that, I would just love to really welcome you. I think the psychology part of marketing is such a missed opportunity. And so I'm looking forward to you explaining that to us even more. But do you want to just share how you got into the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. For one thing, I've always loved marketing. I actually got a degree in journalism at school, which is a very valuable degree because you learn how to write. And that's a really key skill for any facet of marketing, from content marketing to email campaigns. If you can't write and write persuasively, you're not going to be as effective. So, but my last semester of school, I was dating someone who was in a marketing class and he fell asleep while we were studying. So I grabbed his book and started reading this marketing chapter. And I thought, oh no, I've missed my calling. So I graduated with my journalism degree and ended up pursuing marketing jobs because it was just so creative. Nothing against journalism. Journalism is fascinating, but I really loved tapping into that creativity and being able to develop campaigns and see them actually
Mm.
manifest in our communities and in our world and see people respond and gain joy or achieve goals because of something that you were able to create. There was just something about that.
Yeah.
So for years, I was able to do a lot of marketing. As you mentioned, I worked for some of the world's biggest agencies, DDB and Ketchum. I then went to the client side and worked for American Express, which was fascinating. And I got to manage Ogilvy and Mather, New York City. And that was a really fun and interesting job. So I
Wow.
have a lot of exposure to the agency side as well as the client side. And after American Express, I ended up, moving back to the West. I worked in the East for a while. I moved back to the West And I decided to do my own consulting living in Colorado, which I have been very fortunate to do and am still doing. And fortunately, I wrote the book, Big Business Marketing for Small Business Budgets, based on what I learned at American Express. American Express is one of the best marketing companies ever known to the business world, and I don't think that will ever change. And I
Wow.
learned so much as a global marketing manager for them in the travel related services division that I ended up leaving, going to Colorado. I got married, moved, and started my own consulting practice. And I decided, you know what, I really need to share what I've learned. So
Hmm.
I shared the principles of what I learned about personalization and customer segmentation. And this was before social media was king. This was really at the beginning of all this new technology transformation. And it was fascinating to me what American Express could do with just some new insights and ways of thinking.
Yeah.
So I wrote that book to help small businesses gain the same insights. So
Hmm.
as a consultant, after writing that book, it exposed me to a lot of big brands, one of whom was Xerox. And Xerox loved what I was doing with this whole concept of big business marketing for small business budgets, because a lot of their clients are
Hmm.
small franchise owners for different, print shops, right? So they traveled me around the world to talk about their technology of personalization. They're the ones that invented the personalized direct marketing technology where you'd get a letter and the whole
Oh,
letter would read about your transactions, all the things that you did specifically with that brand, how much money you had in an investment account, what you would have in 5 years if you maintained that investment account, all customized to your actual data. And then they'd have like visuals and your name would be in the clouds or would be on the logo or whatever product was in the image. So they
wow.
personalized that. They created that. They pioneered it. And they traveled me around the world to talk about the power of personalization. Now, at the time, personalization was increasing response by 600% for a direct marketing campaign. That's unheard of. These are print direct marketing campaigns. Well, over the years, I did this for about 15 years with them.
Hmm.
Over the years, personalization became somewhat of a commodity, and people were starting to expect it. They expected all that personal information. If it wasn't there, they'd throw it away, right? So I came to the conclusion that I needed to build on this whole practice and learn how to personalize marketing to the human psychology, to the psyche of how we process information and the human psyche that influences choice. So I threw out the marketing books and I started reading Jung. I know, ironic. I started reading Jung, Cialdini, Kahneman, Freud, all the masters of psychology and the current
Yeah.
psychologists that are informing the way we do things today. And learned so much. And that's where I learned from Gerald Zaltman, who
Hmm.
is the pioneer of neuroscience, which is a little bit different than psychology-based marketing. And he came up with a book called How Consumers Think. And for his book, he did a lot of research and determined that 90% of what we do is actually driven by our unconscious mind. And now that fascinated me. So that really got me into a whole new idea of how to tap the unconscious mind in order to influence the conscious mind, because marketers have traditionally been marketing to price, convenience, and tangible values. Well, according
Hmm.
to that statistic that I just gave and that you read in my introduction, that Zaltman came up with, that means marketers are then wasting 90% of their budget because they're tapping into the conscious drivers,
Hmm.
price and convenience and
Yeah.
quality promises and customer reviews. Those are all things we consciously monitor and review. But the unconscious mind are insecurities, FOMO, the fear of missing out,
Yeah.
social proof, our influence, our incredible influence by authorities, as we learned from the Milgram study, which I can talk about a little bit later. But all the things that really influence us are really not at all connected to price and quality and convenience.
Right.
They're connected to what I call the survival DNA.
Mm.
Now, everything we do, whether we want to admit it or not, and most of us will never admit it, is really based upon survival. We
Mm.
need to make wise B2B decisions
Yeah.
because we gotta keep that job, especially in a job market like we have today. Nobody can risk losing a job.
Yeah.
So it's scary, and there's more emotions involved in B2B decisions than most people realize, because if you lose that job, you lose your ability to take care of your family, you lose your
Right.
lifestyle, you lose all your sense of security.
Hmm.
And even if you don't lose your job, you make a bad B2B decision, you buy a bad software program that doesn't deliver on the promises during the sales pitch, or your ERP goes down,
Yeah.
you hire a marketing agency that doesn't deliver, it makes you look bad. So you don't get that promotion, you don't get the career
Hmm.
credibilities. There's a lot at play. So you're in the mode of surviving in the business world. Well, our consumer purchases are also based a lot on survival. A
Wow.
friend of mine is a former CEO of Armani, and he's also was a CMO for Calvin Klein and has a lot of luxury background experience. And I always debated with him, that $50,000 handbag that you're selling on your website, he'd always remind me that, yes, Jeanette, it's selling.
Right, right.
Why? Because
Yeah,
it makes us feel superior,
right.
not
Yeah,
because it really does anything different. Because that 50, let me back it up.
yeah,
Gucci has a $200,000 handbag.
yeah.
So that $200,000 Gucci alligator bag
Hmm.
actually has the same performance and function as a Target bag for $20, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's true. Actually, I had a luxury brand, so I know the difference between like one skin of leather. So it's really the branding that is now, driving the price up. So those are facts that you're speaking right now.
But let's think about why people would spend $200,000 on a handbag that
Right.
would that they can that does the same thing
Hmm.
as a Target bag. It carries your keys, your wallet, your
Right.
phone, whatever else you need, your cosmetics, whatever you have in that handbag can still be carried in a $20 bag and a $200,000 bag. And when you walk down the streets of New York City or Omaha, Nebraska, wherever you might be, nobody knows you paid $200,000 for that bag but you, because that logo really isn't that apparent
Right.
on most of the really fine luxury brands. Like, I know I've seen your work, you have beautiful stuff, but
Hmm.
your logos aren't really apparent. So people don't really notice that, and they
Right.
don't automatically know you spend that kind of money, but you do. And
Hmm.
because you feel like you're going to survive at the end of the day because you're
Right.
superior. There's something about you that has a superpower, and you're going to survive when others don't. That's why we make a lot of the purchases we do. It all comes down to our survival DNA. And
Wow.
you see a lot of marketers tapping into our survival DNA
Yeah.
because it's really what drives us. And there's research that shows
Hmm.
we are more inclined to act to avoid a loss than we are to act to gain a reward. It
Yeah.
all goes back to
Yeah.
not losing what we have and feeling like we have something over the masses that'll help us survive all the bad things that might come our way.
Right. That's amazing because even as I'm just thinking of small business owners who are really struggling with like lead generation, they're struggling to, have their message cut across, they're really not tapping into that psyche. They're thinking of price or thinking of the product, but they're really at a very high level. They're not really digging deep into what that customer is really trying to solve for. So that's a wonderful analogy. I know we're going to talk more about the setting up your business to RIP with ESP marketing, but you gave so many insights. I have like my notebook is already getting full here. I love that you gave the example of American Express as well, because as I'm thinking of the challenge for small business owners, they struggle with prompting when we talk about AI. And so that comes down to two things you've mentioned: communication, being able to write and being able to articulate what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and then having an example of someone that is successful. And so when I'm teaching people about power prompting, these are the two things we really talk about. Are you communicating well through your writing? And do you have examples of what it is that you're trying to accomplish? So I'm adding your insights to now how I'll be prompting, moving forward. But this psychology piece, I think it's huge. Like how would you advise, small business owners who, don't have these large budgets? What would be kind of the first steps for them to look for to start implementing these, transformative
Well,
pieces?
this is going to sound counterintuitive, but a lot of what I do is counterintuitive, and that's why it works. we'll leave that for another day.
Mhm.
But I encourage small businesses to move away from USPs to ESPs. So I need to
Mhm.
think about that. What is a USP? Well, it's a unique selling proposition. You're a small business. I'm sorry, let's face the fact. If you come up with something unique, it's going to be unique for 5 minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes, because
Mhm.
there's a bigger competitor who has more technology, more resources, more people, and more ability to act faster than you do. And they're going to duplicate any great idea that you come out with, and then you're going to be playing catch up. So
Yeah.
you can't compete with the USP. The
Mhm.
only way you can compete today, and it's anytime in the history of commerce, I'm going to suggest, is
Mhm.
with an ESP. And that's what a term that I've coined,
Mhm.
which is emotional selling proposition. Going back to what I said earlier, everything we do has an emotional undertone or an emotional unconscious influence. So
Mhm.
you need to understand what are the emotions for your business category and
Mhm.
put together an ESP profile. Yes, you want to have a unique selling proposition to know how you stand out in terms of, kind of your value proposition for what you offer. But when it
Mhm.
comes to influencing consumer behavior and building relationships with customers and prospects, what are the emotions that drive them? Go back to what I said earlier.
Yeah.
We will put more effort into avoiding a loss than we will to seek a reward.
Mhm.
Just how we are. And when you understand what the fear is that people have associated with your business category, you can develop messages to mitigate that fear.
Mhm.
And you can actually approach your marketing from a whole different angle. So I'm going to give you a fun example. Um, one of my clients years ago was an investment fund, right? And it was a real estate investment fund when real estate was not a good thing. Right now, real estate is just out of control, right? But at the
So crazy.
time, nobody was going to invest in commercial real estate because it was tanking and many investors were losing their shirts. Shopping malls were closing right and left. It was just a
Wow.
disaster.
Mhm.
But he was going into these pitches. Now, these messages aren't just for social media campaigns and email campaigns. It's for how you present in a sales presentation. So
Right.
he would go into these meetings. He's trying to close these big four accounts. He'd say, "Hey, this is wonderful. Listen to me. Trust me. This is going to do wonders for you." And they would look at him like, "Yeah, right," because their minds would go back to their comfort zone. Their comfort zone was, "Nope, not going to happen. I don't trust you. I know all
Yeah.
about real estate. I've been reading the Wall Street Journal. La la la. It's gonna no way." So he was going in there and trying to communicate on a level that didn't fit their cognizant reference for that industry.
Mhm.
So I told him, go in there and speak their language. Tell them what they believe is true because it
Mhm.
actually kind of is.
Yeah.
So he would change his tone and speak to their fear. What they
Mhm.
were worried about losing was losing their shirts and their investment. He'd walk in and say, "Hey, I understand why you're hesitant to invest in real estate. It's been bad for years. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're right. It's been kind of a dud. But let me show you what we think the opportunity is. So will you give me just a minute to me to show you what the progression is and what the data is showing us to where this might actually be something you want to consider." He
Yeah.
closed all four accounts because he spoke to their fear
Mhm.
instead of trying to change
Right.
their instinct.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that small businesses have to do. What are the instincts behind the purchase in your category? What are their fears? What are their anticipations?
Yeah.
Take a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Where are
Mhm.
people in their decision journey? Are they buying something that's a basic survival, which is the lower end of the pyramid, or are we're going towards self-actualization? If
Right.
your product helps them get closer to self-actualization, speak from that survival and slowly move up. But you need to speak in terms of how they process their own life and their own world and their own risks.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is so powerful because if you're a small business owner, you're kind of the chief everything officer, right? And so if
Yeah.
you're not using this strategy for your marketing, you're making your work a lot harder. So I'm even thinking to myself, why is this not taught in traditional marketing, for even for big businesses, small businesses, this level of emotional intelligence in the marketing, I feel like is a huge missing piece and it's a missed opportunity.
Well, it's interesting you say that because once I started studying psychology, I felt the same way. And if
Mhm.
I had to go back in time, I would get my bachelor's degree in psychology so that I understand human behavior
Hmm.
and how irrational we really are.
Right.
We are not who we think we are. Sorry.
Right.
And then I would get my master's in business. So I had what I did. I got my bachelor's in journalism, as I already mentioned, and then I got an MBA. An
Right.
MBA is really important because you need to understand how to run a business and the
Yeah.
aspects of the business world. You need to know how to analyze your markets and your trends and make sense of data so you can make wise decisions with your resources. But you also need to understand human behavior. And
Yeah.
that's something I would suggest to people that are just getting started in any business field.
Hmm.
If your job is to market to people and your business depends on customers, which I think is about 99.9% of the businesses out there,
Yeah.
you need to understand human behavior
Yeah.
and how to influence in your favor in an
Mhm.
ethical approach.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And I think people are not thinking of that piece. They're just like, maybe trying to force the sale. They're not even actually thinking about any element of the customer. And so where that frustration comes up, why you're not making the sale, it's because you're actually not even at the point where the person is even hearing you. Like,
Paul, I think you bring up a really good point. People don't sit down and think about the customer, and I think there's a real fundamental reason why. We
mm,
live in a society where everything is extreme. You
mm,
need to be extremely successful at an extremely young age. I hate those lists of 30 under 30 and 40 under 40. These people don't have a life. Life
right,
is meant to be lived in phases, not to be the hero for the 15 minutes of fame because you started a really successful business and you're under so much pressure to be
for
extremely
sure.
wealthy and extremely successful that a lot of people unfortunately get there through means that really were not the right means to get
Right.
there. And so
Yeah.
we've really turned our society around. But my whole point in mentioning that is that we're in such a hurry to meet society's demands for this
Yeah.
extreme achievement in extremely fast time that we don't slow down to think about what we're doing. And I believe that that's the reason why 95% of all startups fail. We
Yeah.
don't sit down to think about how our product fits somebody's life and how it
Yeah.
changes their world and makes it for the better.
Mhm.
Instead, we're just trying to meet investors' goals and get more PE
Correct.
money. And if we don't
Yeah.
reach this profit margin by this date, then no one will invest in us. And we're just thinking about things from the wrong angle.
Exactly. And when you look at those statistics for small business owners and the failure rates, I was just reading something on LinkedIn recently and it said the failure rates are increasing. And I think it really goes back to what you're mentioning. People are just in such a hurry to get something out and maybe, this holistic pressure that they're feeling that they're actually not building things that are viable because they don't know what the customer actually really wants at the end of the day.
I think what you even said was better. They don't take time to even to learn it because they don't care. What's happening when you're PE backed, you
Mhm.
typically are given 2 to 5 years to reach
Mhm.
outrageously aggressive revenue goals. Now,
Wow.
wait a minute. If you're PE backed,
Mhm.
you means that you don't have all the resources and you haven't fully developed your product. You're still in that build stage, right?
Mhm.
Or you're a struggling business that couldn't keep the lights on, so you sold to a PE in hopes that they would turn you around.
Mhm.
Neither of those scenarios are a quick turn, but yet the
Right.
pressure is on to be something that is not realistic.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think a lot of them fail. And I think if companies can slow down
Right.
and build their businesses around consumers' demands. And consumers' demands are so much more than product now. This
Yeah.
whole concept of let your business rip, as you know, what does RIP stand for? You
Yeah.
know, it stands for reciprocity, impact, and purpose. Consumers are demanding that brands really develop key competencies and contributions in those 3 areas, or they're not going to do business with you. They'll find somebody else.
That's amazing. And actually, that's such a great segue because I was like, now maybe the small business owner has taken the time to figure out what their ESP is. And now they're moving into the second part of your framework, which is the RIP. Can you break down reciprocity, impact, and purpose for someone who's like, oh, I've never thought about that. Like, how can I use that for my business?
Well, it's really changed. We've been in the consumer driven market for many, many years. That's never going to change because of the ability that consumers have to get information on any brand at any time about any aspect of anything they do. I
Right.
mean, you're all out there now. There's no privacy and you better be transparent. So consumers are demanding that the brands that they patronize, I think the latest research I saw was about 85% of consumers are
Wow.
demanding that brands are really adhere to high levels of CSR, corporate social responsibility, and ESG,
Mm,
environmental, social, and governance compliance, best
wow.
practices. And they're looking for brands that are built around a purpose or
Mm,
brands that are focused on a purpose rather than just profit.
yeah.
And if they don't see that on your website, in your social campaigns, in your actions, not just your words, there
Yeah.
are a lot of functional and competitive alternatives in every single business category that your customers can shift to. Now, go
Wow.
back to that research. It's done every year by Cone Communications, CONE Communications. They put out a customer. I'm not sure what they call it, the customer purpose index. There's also the power of purpose index. There's all sorts of different research data out there to show you how important purpose is for branding.
Mhm.
And you can find these in all sorts of different resources. Edelman puts one out.
Oh,
There's
Edelman.
there's a lot of really good resources. So at this point, anyone should just Google, the power of purpose and CSR and ESG, and you'll find a lot of research that shows how important this is. But the latest one from Cone showed it was about 85%, I believe,
Wow.
of consumers will switch brands, even if the price is higher, because
Mm,
they want to do business with brands that have like values.
mhm.
That also includes today political values and social values.
Mhm.
So if you don't take a stand on tough issues, you could be hurting yourself. But if you take the wrong stand, I mean, it's kind of a catch-22. So
Right.
brands have to be very careful, but how you overcome some of the controversial issues that we face today,
Mhm.
um, is that you really just have to be around a purpose and focus on that. Do you
Yeah.
stand for eradicating poverty? Are you standing for marginalized people's rights? Are you
Right.
standing for poverty? Are you trying to help the environment?
Yeah.
If you do these things and you can show that you're putting action, not just a donation every
Mm,
year to a
yeah.
charity, you're really creating a culture in your business practices, you're responsibly resourcing, your
Right.
actions and your words support your purpose that you've presented to the world, then
Yeah.
you're going to find people will be loyal to you for a very long time.
And I feel like that's really an amazing point that you bring up. A lot of the audience members of the Empowered CEO Summit have purpose behind their business. But I think there is a disconnect between the way that they promote it or the way that they show it. There's like a disconnect. They feel like they're bragging or they feel like, this is just the way that I should be doing the business. And so for those entrepreneurs who, maybe they started their businesses because there was a gap in the market and they're like, this isn't right. I want to have this as my challenge to conquer this. How would you advise them to now use that purpose and really make it a big part of the business, not just from a,
It
marketing
has to.
perspective, but the DNA of the business?
And that's exactly right. You've just described it. You've answered the question. Your purpose has to be part of your DNA. And obviously P in RIP is purpose.
Mhm.
Because you look at brands like Cotopaxi, everything, every website you go to, every email they send out, they remind you that they donate 1% of all of their proceeds to eradicate poverty. They have not only do they donate money, but they send their employees on sabbaticals to underserved countries and have them actually work in operations, in farms, in fields, in schools, and orphanages. They actually use their man hours and manpower and the salaries they pay for to make a difference for the people that they have focused on. Look
Wow.
at Tom's Shoes. It's one of the OG
Mhm.
movement brands.
Yeah.
They don't call themselves a shoe company anymore. They call themselves a movement.
Oh, I didn't
And
know
they
that.
Oh, they do. I mean, most of their ads now you see Tom's a movement, join our movement.
Wow.
So they spend about $9 to produce the shoes they sell for about $100
Mm,
because they donate one. And what they do is they have donate days. They have days where you can all come together. You can go to Costa Rica with them, wherever they might be donating shoes that day. You can
mhm,
help distribute the shoes. They used to have events. A day without shoes, and they would encourage people to come to the parks in big cities barefoot and have celebrities there and put on great performances and events
mm,
to encourage people to be part of their movement.
yeah.
And that's what you need to do. you you
Yeah.
you, you can't be worried about bragging. You have to promote this, because
Yeah.
if people cannot find what you're doing to make the world a better place, they're not going to dig for it. You've got less than three
Yeah.
seconds to keep people on a website.
That's so
And
true.
mhm.
That
So
sense of
that
urgency. to put in the marketing. And I love the point that you made. Like you're already doing it. So you just need to make sure that people are aware of what you're doing, because that's going to be one of the key levers that brings more people to your business anyway.
Well, and I think I've mentioned this to you before. You know, Patagonia is all about environment. We all know that. They actually have done such a phenomenal job
Mhm.
that they are the leading company that I think that for probably for all time. They've
Wow.
done such a phenomenal job with their purpose and their mission. And
Mhm.
when they put out an ad asking people to be responsible, they end up selling more product. So they don't advertise their product anymore. There was a campaign they did that said, "Don't buy this jacket." It was a picture of the fleece jacket, their flagship product. I said, "Don't buy this. If you have a broken zipper, you don't need to buy a whole new jacket. Send it back to us. We'll
Right.
repair it and send it back to you. And then we don't put more toxins in the air with more production. We don't end up using more labor hours of people who need to work less.
Right.
We don't use a lot more resources. We're being kinder to earth if we repair versus always reproduce." And they sold millions of jackets because people wanted to support them because
Right.
they were so excited about their
Wow.
vision and their purpose. So find ways, you're never going to hurt yourself by bragging about your purpose. And
Yeah.
and you can't over brag.
Yeah. So people
I don't
actually
think.
will support with their checkbooks for the values that align with them, because they want to see those values more in the world. It makes sense, but I think when going through the day-to-day of running your business, you're forgetting those really key ingredients to, building success. I want to take one step back, because I definitely think the purpose part is very clear. For reciprocity and impact, how would you break those down for small business owners in the RIP process?
So reciprocity. Customers are used to having brands be in charge. Here's my product, here's the price, take it or leave it, right?
Mhm.
And and having absolutely zero added value. You weren't happy? So, I mean, there was an era where that was kind of the norm. Well,
Yeah.
now we are looking to at brands to take care of us. If we're going to support you and we're going to give you our business, what are you going to do for me that adds value beyond the product I just bought?
Yeah.
It's really important that brands find ways to do that, B2B and B2C. So
Yeah.
that's why you see so many warranties, free warranties or really generous return policies. You
Yeah.
see customers, free gifts with purchases. You take care of us and we'll make it extra nice for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
Consumers are expecting that more and more.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite examples is a bank, and they did these billboard campaigns all over Colorado. And it was First Bank and I think First Bank is mostly Colorado and the Intermountain states.
Hmm.
And they had this campaign where they had these huge billboards that cost a lot of money. Denver's not a small town. It's like the 15th largest city in the US.
Very
And so it has
expensive.
a really expensive media buy. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So these billboards would be like wedding singer or math tutor, and it would have a phone number. There's nothing about the bank. There was nothing about their interest rates being better than somebody else's. It was simply math tutor, call Martin, and here's a phone number. So people would
Wow.
call the phone number and ask for Martin. Well, they actually were calling the bank for privacy reasons.
Okay.
And the bank would forward every single lead to Martin, who was a customer of that bank. And they would give him all
Oh,
these leads for
smart.
his math tutor business. Now, what math tutor can afford a billboard? They can't. But
Mhm.
this bank was giving back to their customers by
Mhm.
taking turns, featuring the
Right.
customers and helping them. We're here to help build your business, not just with good interest rates and checking accounts, but we're
Right.
here and credit cards, which of course benefit them. But hey, we're here to help you out too. And
Right.
that was the most successful campaign in the history of that bank. And they said they did this during a time when there was a lot of customer attrition in the bank industry.
Got it.
And they had customers staying for life and more
Mm.
customers coming from other banks because they wanted to be part of not only
Right.
this campaign, but even if they
Right.
weren't chosen to be part of that campaign, they knew they were with a bank who would put their interests ahead of their own.
Mm.
You
And that
can't
goes
do
back
that
to
anymore.
the emotional selling proposition that you mentioned earlier. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So they put their customers' needs and emotional desires ahead of their, maybe short-term needs, and develop this process, which then gave them exponential success at the end anyway. So,
Exactly. And so what it really does too, think about it when someone practices reciprocity in your life, whether it's business or personal, you
Mhm.
trust them. There are so many fallouts, positive fallouts of just the little touches of giving back to a customer that supports you.
Yeah.
If your community, this is another really important thing. If you're a community-based company, what are
Mhm.
you doing to support the local school system, the Boy Scouts, the girls' soccer teams? What are you doing to
Yeah.
give back to the communities where of families that give to you by supporting your business? If you
Right.
own the hardware store in town, what are you doing to support the local business chamber? What are you doing?
Yeah.
You better be taking good note of that.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I'd like to, you touched on this idea of trust. And I think that there is a misconception of trust, especially in the very fast-paced world that we're living in. And so even as small business owners, they're now figuring out what are those emotional cues from their customers? How can they use the RIP framework in order to really be generous? Do you find that there's a way that they can implement artificial intelligence to kind of speed up that process without breaking the trust? Because we do see now things that are, driven by AI, which is where a lot of people are going. They
Mhm.
don't have that trust factor. It's like, oh, did you write that email or did AI write that for you? So is there a way that it can be like a harmonious process to now really focus in on these things, but using technology to help, actualize it?
Absolutely, because AI can keep you honest.
Mm,
When you use AI to basically provide you with a framework, AI gives you facts that that computer has validated and verified.
hmm.
What AI doesn't give you is the judgment and the emotion behind the information. So
Right.
it's really important that marketers embrace AI because,
Right.
for one, it'll help you do a lot more, a lot faster. And in a world where speed is everything, you have to be able to get those email campaigns and social media posts out there. But it also fact checks you. And
Mm,
in a world where misinformation is king, AI is really important because if you want to find something out, AI gathers data, as you well know, from so many different resources and tells you, okay, here's what AI has found through validated sources to
mhm,
be truth about this particular topic. Then your
mhm,
job is then to customize that copy to fit your brand and to fit what you offer and to add truth to your deliverable on that concept. But it
right.
makes it so much faster than trying to start from scratch.
Mhm.
Where AI is a problem is with the images. I think
Yeah.
you have to be so careful. I am over the top on this. I know a lot of people think it's fine that you
Mhm.
use AI to make you look better in your headshots. I am not one of those. To make you look like you're anything you're not, even if it's thinner, younger, whatever. When
Right.
people meet the real you and it's not authentic, there's
Yeah.
a huge disconnect.
Hmm.
And in my book, the entire last chapter is devoted to authenticity. Now,
Mm.
authenticity is a huge component of AI.
Yeah.
If you're going to use artificial anything, you need to back it up with authenticity. The two have to be
Mm.
intermingled, they
Yeah.
have to be married. So you have to use AI to inform you on certain topics, give you the information you need, but then all your communications need to be authentic. Don't put out fake fit headshots. Don't put out fake images of your product to make it look better than it really is. If
Right.
you see it constantly, and we see it on social media all the time. People
Yeah.
are baiting us with fake photos. There's one thing that's these travel sites. Look at this gorgeous photo of Yellowstone. It's not Yellowstone. That actually happens to be Yosemite. And so what they'll do
Right.
is they'll have 1,000 people comment, that's Yosemite, not Yellowstone. Bingo. They were hoping they would do that. They're trying to trap you into
Mm.
commenting because
Got
the
it.
more I don't know if you know this, but the
The
algorithms,
algorithms. Yeah.
if
Hmm.
somebody comments on your post, you automatically just got a 30 times boost on, I think it's X is a 20 times boost, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, you get on the algorithms if they like it. So they get people liking these beautiful AI enhanced photos where I'm sorry, nothing is quite like
That
that. I
gorgeous.
live in
Yeah.
mountains. Nothing's there's a few dead trees in every photo, but on AIs there's not, right?
Right.
And the greens are greener than God made them to be green. But the point is, everyone's liking it because they're thinking, oh, what a great photo. But then they get all these other people commenting. So they're,
Yeah.
instead of getting a one times boost, they get a 20 to 30 times boost because
Um,
they trapped you into commenting on something they knew was fake. That is not a good way to build trust.
no, it
You
isn't.
can, the algorithms, you can play the algorithm game with truth and authenticity. And
Yeah.
you can use AI to help inform you on what some of those topics and content should be. But
Yeah.
that's where it ends. It's your job to use your human judgment,
Mm,
your ability to separate truth from hype, and to create a true, authentic story. There is no, like I said, I devoted the whole last chapter of my book, which is the Market Your Business, your guide to do it yourself marketing with Entrepreneur Magazine, came out
yeah.
just um,
I'm so
that
excited to get a copy, by the way, because
I
based
know, and it's
on,
on its way.
yeah,
Sorry.
based on all of your experience and now incorporating AI, I mean, please tell us more about the book. Like, how did you come up with the idea to do it now? What are the different pieces? Because I know it's going to be, really game changing for small business owners.
So I'm very fortunate. I every book I've written, the publishers have actually come to me and asked me to write the books. It doesn't usually happen that way, but
Hmm.
Entrepreneur came to me and said, "Hey, we've got this new series, and we're curious if you would want to be a part of it." And
Hmm.
I started thinking, for entrepreneurs, absolutely, they need to be able to do everything themselves,
Yeah.
and they need to be able to automate everything. And that's the beauty of the world we live in, and that's a lot of where AI is so fabulous because
Hmm.
AI allows us to do things faster and smarter and automated. And right now, when you're doing your own business, like you said, you're the chief everything officer. You need to have the tools and the systems and the insights to know, first of all, what you need to do. What are your priorities? Is it
Yeah.
SEO? Is it CRM? Is it social media? Is it digital advertising? You need to figure out what the priority channels are and the priority messaging, and then you need to focus on the things that you can do best and not try to take on more than you can handle. You
Yeah.
don't have to do it all. Just because there's a new marketing trend or technology does not mean you need to do it. You
Yeah.
need to do what you know reaches your consumers. You need to channel them through the channels that you know they use, and then just stay true to the course instead of trying all these different sidebars because
Hmm.
they just distract your time and your budget. So you need, and that's where AI is really helpful because it can help you develop the content, you tweak it, help you develop the graphics, you make sure it's true, and then
Hmm.
you can really push it out and automate it. You need to have a good CRM system, and it's not expensive. There are so many
Yeah.
CRM systems for small businesses now. There's so many different price points. So you
Hmm.
just need to be able to manage all your communications. Hootsuite has a lot of great price points, so you
Yeah.
can manage all your social media channels. But it's just a matter of understanding. And again, everything you do needs to communicate your mission of reciprocity for how you treat your customers
Yeah.
and the purpose around which you have built and how you and around which you execute your brand.
Yeah.
The one thing we haven't talked about is the impact. And
Yes.
impact is twofold. So if you don't mind,
Mhm.
I'll move into that.
Yes, definitely.
So impact, what I mean by impact is it's similar to purpose, but
Hmm.
what is the impact that you're having, not just on a society that's associated with your purpose? Your impact is the quantifiable proof that your
Right.
purpose is relevant and making a difference. If you cannot show the impact with quantifiable data, with
Hmm.
man hours, or you built an orphanage or you did whatever, you have to be able to show it, not just talk it. Okay, that's one thing. But also, what's the impact that you're having on the individual lives and self-actualization journey of your customers? We tend to partner with people, organizations, and brands that we help, but we believe and that we trust to help us get us to our goal. Is our goal to be an influencer? Is our goal to be
Hmm.
an adventure writer? Is our goal to be just, a writer or a blogger or whatever it might be, or a new business person in the manufacturing space? What is it our goal is?
Yeah.
We're looking to those groups to have an impact on our individual journeys. So
Hmm.
you need to make sure that whatever you do, your communications and your brand purpose and your sales process are not about just closing a sale, but it's about building a partnership that helps you reach your goals and helps your customers reach their goals. So you have those win-win situations. It's not just about profitability anymore. It's about, again, reciprocity that
Yeah.
influences impact, and that impact builds a purpose.
Yeah, I love that you touched on a win-win situation. And I think in terms of some of the conversations that I've seen, some of the noise that I've seen online, we've moved away from that win-win conversation where it's just very straightforward. There's something that you have, there's something that you need. And I feel like there's a lot of emphasis on, get what you can get, always be closing. Like there isn't that harmonious idea of a win-win situation. And so it just ties back to what you're talking about in terms of like the psychology of how people buy. They know when they're being used or abused. They know when someone just wants to sell. So it's like, let's dig into the psychology. And I feel like it's an easier approach. Maybe it takes longer to develop it, to build it, but I feel like it's an easier approach. I don't know. How do you feel about that? Like someone just the short term sell, sell, sell versus really investing in what is the psychology of my customer and build that into, my communication.
So this is going to open up a little bit of a question of ethics too.
Mhm.
Beyond what I mentioned in terms of the social triggers, which are related to human consumer behavior, that aspect of human psychology, FOMO, fear of missing out. You don't want to have, we want to have what other people have. We want to feel equal. We follow authority. I'm not going to get into it, but there's a Milgram study that shows that people will follow authority even if it goes against their moral conscience. I suggest everybody listening look up the Milgram study. It's
Mhm.
really powerful and teaches you just how forceful authority is in decision making and human
Mhm.
influence, right?
Mhm.
Totally changing your moral compass. The
Mhm.
other one, of course, is there's social proof, scarcity, there's FOMO, all these different things influence our behavior, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
going back to survival DNA.
Yeah.
But also, what influences our behavior are hormonal rushes. And
Mm.
this is where you really have to, oh, all of it, every aspect of psychology. If you're influencing behavior through psychological means, you better have a really strong sense of ethics, or you
Mm.
should not be in the world of business
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're influencing people's behavior and they may not realize they're being influenced. But
Mhm.
the one thing that the most important triggers, there's really three hormones that
Mhm.
take over our brains and take over our entire being. And one is dopamine. That
Mhm.
is the feel we get of euphoria. A lot of it's related to drug use, substance
Mhm.
abuse. You feel
Mhm.
like you could accomplish anything and you have to get that fix. When you have a dopamine rush, you feel like you can do anything. So when
Mhm.
marketers create a dopamine rush in their marketing campaigns or their customer experiences, they're setting up people to make rash and quick decisions that maybe really aren't the best decisions for the long term. So
Mhm.
how are you using that dopamine rush when you create it?
Right.
We see dopamine in advertising all the time, trying to push the impulse sell.
Mhm.
Again,
Mhm. Yep.
is it in your best interest? Is it in their best interest? It better be in both.
Right.
Two is oxytocin. That's the hormone that we feel when somebody likes us, when someone holds our hand, when someone tells us we're beautiful, when someone says, hey, come be part of my tribe. We like you. You belong with us. When we
Yeah.
get that sense of belonging or love, we feel incredible hormone that
Mhm.
changes everything. It turns off our judgment pathways. It really does.
Mhm.
There's data that shows when you feel that's why people will date people they really shouldn't date. It's not a healthy relationship, but they stay in it because the
Right.
oxytocin overrides their judgment.
Mhm.
And that's very common. We don't need to go into that aspect of human psychology. That's not the purpose of of this call, but it just shows you how powerful it is.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you're going to create oxytocin and let people know that they belong with you and you belong with them, you better deliver that. And you better deliver
Mhm.
that because if you don't, you're breaking their trust. Once trust is broken, forever gone. And you
Mhm.
better deliver it in a way that's ethical and authentic.
Right.
If you say, come be part of my brand tribe, what are you offering members of your tribe? And how do you create a forum of discussion? And how do you respond and keep the communications flowing? Social media creates that forum for discussion for tribes, and you
Right.
better keep them honest and you better be authentic and honest and you deal with the negative and the positive.
Mhm.
A third one that's really powerful is cortisol.
Mhm.
That's our fight or flight hormone. When
Mm.
we are in a fearful situation, we will either stand and fight to the end or we will run away.
Yeah.
And understanding how these influence purchasing behavior, like you just lied to me, you told me this price, and now that I'm in your store, you're telling me a different price.
Right.
What are you going to do? You're going to go into your flight mode. You
Yeah.
don't trust
Yeah.
these people. You're not going to fight for something you don't believe in anymore. So
Mhm.
these are things that you have to know. But then it comes with a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. And it seems like a lot of what you're mentioning, it kind of falls under this idea of like integrity marketing. It's
Oh,
kind of
I like that. You just
like
with a whole new genre. I love it.
yeah, it's kind of like, treat people how you want to be treated in the marketing process. And so that really, I mean, I think for a lot of small business owners who kind of are overwhelmed with all the tactics and like how to get people into your funnel, if you just think about it from an integrity perspective, it just allows you to say, how would I want to be treated? How would I want my mom to be treated in this situation? And it kind of alleviates a bit of that stress. But just quickly, I wanted to also ask you, what are the common kind of problems that you're seeing the small business owner? Maybe they don't have a background in psychology. Maybe they don't even, this is the first time they're hearing about, the emotional side of their consumer. What would be the common mistakes you see with someone who doesn't have that lens? And then would you have any advice for them? Because I do feel that if you use this, RIP process in tangent with AI, it can also help you bridge gaps and help you really achieve your goals faster. So, how would you
Absolutely.
advise the small business owner that's like, what do I do now? Where are the key things I need that I'm messing up and what do I do about it?
Well, with all the information that's out there that's available for free, all the studies about consumer behavior and purchasing trends about any industry, there is no excuse not to have that lens. So there is no reason why you can't go get a pair of glasses that are going to help you figure out what your customers really want. All
Mm-hmm.
you have to do is Google consumer behavior for healthcare, consumer behavior for makeup or cosmetics. Take a look at influencer sites. Go on Instagram, Facebook, X, go on all these different platforms, TikTok, and see what the influencers are saying. And
Mm-hmm.
you'll quickly and what they're promoting, the images, the personalities, the values, you'll quickly get a glimpse into the value set and the aspirations of your current customers based on who's influencing their behavior. So that's one lens that's free.
Mm-hmm.
Another lens is to look at Nielsen IQ. Nielsen IQ is putting out consumer information all the time. So is Deloitte, so is Accenture. Edelman puts out a yearly trust barometer to tell you if consumers are gaining or losing trust in your industry. That's incredibly
Oh,
huge. You need
wow.
to find out what they think about your category before you can really build a brand.
Yeah, yeah,
If you have to convince them that you're the one financial institution in the entire world they can trust, well, then you better be on a mission to do that. So,
yeah.
but you have to find out what their aspects and their elements are. There is no excuse for not understanding how consumers feel about your category. That's first.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to look at yourself and what your own values are. How are you going to build your brand around those values? Okay. You in the very first chapter of my new book, The Market Your Business with Entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
is called Define Your Brand's 360-degree value. Because
Ooh.
you have to define the values that you're going to promote for society, the
Mm-hmm.
values you're going to promote for relationships with your customers, the values you're going to promote that are tangible, and your emotional values. 360 degrees of values, and you would define that.
Yeah.
When you define what those are, and your messaging needs to be backed by those. Your actions, your customer service plan, all the messaging, the persona. You're going to put out content and imagery that supports your values, does not compete with your values. And
Yeah.
it's not really that hard to do. There's a ton of information. And the other thing that you need to do is you need to start talking to your customers.
Yeah.
X, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn all allow you to do short polls. Ask them constantly. Ask prospects, what's the most important decision criteria for you when you're buying this? Is it
Yeah.
price? Is it budget? What do you fear the most? When
Mhm.
purchasing this category, what's your biggest fear of failure? What do you anticipate in terms of the reward? These are little ways to find out what the unconscious thought drivers are. You can't ask somebody, so unconsciously, what's driving your decisions?
They're like, oh, this person is weird. I'm gonna unfollow you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. But there are ways to ask questions to know what their values are that they may not even recognize are driving their
yeah,
behavior.
yeah.
of that. It's
I love this like approach to marketing because it's kind of it really builds a long-term brand, you know, and a lot of the small business owners are trying to do legacy-driven work, purpose-driven work. But I think they get sidetracked with all of these kind of like buy now, do it now. You know, they're doing things that actually compete with what their own values are. I love that you mentioned that. And most people are not taking the time to do the 360-degree process, which really becomes their compass. You know, so it's like, no wonder you don't know what to say. You don't know, you haven't really built that foundation from a visionary perspective. So I love that approach of what you're speaking about.
Thank you. I've never seen it fail.
Yeah. Wow, this has been really amazing. I mean, you've answered all of the questions that I have and more, and I've been jotting down all the notes. And so, all the resources that you mentioned, I'm going to provide to the audience of small business owners. If someone is looking to, you know, get in touch with you, follow you, support what you're doing, how is it best for them to find you and to connect with you?
I'm always on LinkedIn. My website is also Jeanette McMurtry with the McMurtry. Most people leave out one of the R's. JeanetteMcMurtry.com is another way to get to my business website. Probably easier to remember than my business name. And I'm always looking to interact and I welcome anyone's questions or comments. I love talking to business owners and finding out what their challenges are. I love trying to be creative and inspire people to think at higher levels. So I welcome that interaction.
Yeah, awesome. And please remind us the name of the book and where people can find your book, because I'm sure many people need it as a resource, and I'm sure they're going to want to order it.
Thank you. The book that just came out by Entrepreneur Press. Is called Market Your Business, Your Guide to Do-It-Yourself Marketing. It's on Amazon. And just as you to kind of set the stage, it's a companion to Marketing for Dummies. This new book is a much shorter book. And again, if you only had 3 or 4 things to prioritize on, what would you do and how would you spend your resources and how can you do it yourself? Marketing for Dummies is much more in depth. It's 420 pages and
Wow.
talks about distribution channels, pricing models, it walks people through the steps of setting up an Amazon store, an eBay store. How do you choose between the two? All the e-commerce functions that you might need for a digital online store. So it's a
Wow.
lot more in depth on tactics for everything from distribution to marketing campaigns, where
Mhm.
Market Your Dummy just takes a few things like SEO, email, and really focuses on building a brand so those marketing tactics and the dummies books can have a better chance of achieving a high ROI.
Right. And you did mention there's a segment of AI in your new book for people who are looking to kind of
Yes.
build that bridge at the same time.
I mention AI throughout every chapter because AI it really touches almost every aspect of marketing these days, from
Yeah.
content to distribution to measurement,
Hmm.
and to monitoring markets. There's so many ways you can use AI. In augmented reality, lots of information on that, more
Right.
so in the dummies book, but there's all the different aspects of how you can use these different technology. Augmented reality is really fun. You can go on to L'Oreal.com and change your hair color in about 5 seconds. It's really fun.
Oh,
You know,
that's
so you can just
awesome.
you can try on different makeup, different colors of foundation. You can, have pink hair, see what you'd look like before you make the commitment. So there's a lot of fun technologies that brands can use now. So I kind of give an idea of how to create these kind of experiences. And again, how do you manipulate those for your budget and for your resources?
Right. Yeah, I love that you make it budget friendly for that chief everything officer in the small business. They're like, I need it, but maybe I can't afford it now. But you're going to also help them to drive more revenue by doing their marketing smarter. So this has been amazing. I have so many notes. I can't wait to go back and review and even get more insights from you, Jeanette. I really appreciate you taking the time and being a part of this summit. And I'm sure you've empowered so many CEOs with your passion. And we just really appreciate you for being here.
Well, thank you. I'm honored to be part of your event. I mean, everything you do is amazing. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will make sure to link all of your information for people that want to reach out to you.
Thanks again. And
Awesome. Thank
congratulations
you.
on a great event.
Oh,
Bye-bye.
thanks so much. Bye.